Hello everybody, my name is James Davies and welcome to Photo Chat Vlog on YouTube. As we get to the end of 2018, I thought I'd review the year in terms of my film photography. A big part of photography consists of gear and technique, but it's also about one's life. At least it is for me as a hobby photographer. So there will be some chat about photos, but also other stuff. Now 2018 turned out to be very challenging for me, but as ever, photography was there to support me whether I realised it or not. It's difficult to sum up what happened this year because it's kind of personal and I'm still figuring some of it out. But suffice to say, on reflection, it turned out to be all about change and getting a better understanding of who I am, even if that was kind of hard. And during all this, sometimes I had a camera and sometimes I didn't. Looking back on when I did have a camera, well, I was glad I did. But at the same time, knowing how intense some of this year was, it was probably appropriate that I didn't photograph everything that happened. I can't emphasise enough for me, so it's really emphasising it to myself. In fact, I guess I'm having a little personal therapy moment here right now. But I can't emphasise enough how there really can be a therapeutic exchange when you take a photograph. There's a phrase that I adopted, which is, take care of the image and let the image take care of you. It's very important for me if I'm struggling emotionally to try and document my feelings. I'm a guy, so this is always a challenge. It's not that men don't talk about their feelings, it's just that they're really, really difficult to figure out if you are a guy, or at least if you're me. And I say this as somebody who has quite honestly worked very hard on examining my feelings. I'm still absolutely useless at knowing what the hell is going on most of the time. But when I'm out there with my camera and I'm pointing it at things, I don't use the camera as some sort of forensic tool that records scenes impartially. Instead, I've worked hard on training myself to use the camera as an extra pair of eyes for my feelings. So very often, the pictures that I'm taking are tied into how I'm feeling. Sometimes I'm trying to use the picture to communicate with somebody because I'm thinking about them when I'm taking photos. Sometimes I'm trying to capture a moment as being special for me, and sometimes I'm just trying to say to myself, whilst you're in this moment, let's record something of it for the future, to prove you were in it and to prove you got through it. So when you take a photograph, you take a slice of time, literally recording a slice of time that you can use in the future if you're struggling right now. The photo sits there waiting, and when you're ready, it gives you back a way of thinking about the moment and consequently yourself. Now at the moment, regarding sharing images with the world via social media, I'm working through photographs from May this year, so I'm 7 months behind as I type this. I've still got quite a lot of pictures from this year that I've yet to review and get online, because I'm always at least 6 months behind. But that's slow photography for you. Now thinking about the images I've posted so far, many of them are from travels to places and experiences whilst I was being challenged this year, and on reflection I'm glad I took them. They show me a different side from when I might look back and think what a disaster this year was. They're proof that I was out there and functioning and being okay. So as a way of reviewing things, I thought I would whiz through 1 or 2 photographs from each of the rolls of film that I took this year. You might see these in greater detail in other videos, either ones that are online already or ones later to come next year. But if you really like the look of an image and you want to know more, you can leave a comment and let me know. So I think I shot 15 rolls of film this year, starting with a test roll of Poundland Agfa Vista in the new 5-pound MjuII. Which of course I already talked about in Photo Chat Vlog Season 2, Episodes 3 and 7. Now in truth I began that roll in December 2017, but I took the majority of the shots in January 2018, so it really was the first film that I took this year. It was the first camera that I took out and about with me, and though I was testing that camera, it was very much pictures of my life at the time. Now this photo was taken in a cafe in Oxford on the 29th of January 2018. Balancing the camera on the table using the self-timer with no flash. It's a nice memory of a fun evening, and it's all discussed along with the rest of the roll in Season 2, Episode 7. So check that one out if you want to know more. Now after I shot the MjuII roll, I dug out a Canon Epoca, which is an interesting camera. It's what's called a bridge camera from the 1990s. So it's a fully automatic camera like a compact, but with a great big zoom lens, like the kind of size lens you'd get on an SLR. It's all built into the camera body rather than looking like a conventional camera. In fact, the Epoca looks more like a video camera. Now I got mine about 10 years ago in a classic internet moment. I read about the camera while surfing the net, I hopped over to eBay and found one right away. I hit buy it now, and in a few days it was delivered and I was shooting with it. But I haven't used it as much as I thought I would, so evidently I decided to reinvigorate that camera earlier in the year and go out and take some pictures with it. Now the interesting thing about this was I knew there was a film in it, but I thought it was a black and white film. It turns out it was colour film, and it was some own brand film from a pharmacy chain in the USA called CVS. I bought some rolls of it on a trip to America a couple of years ago, and I'm fairly confident that it's Fuji C200 colour film. But I only found that out when I finished the roll. I've been shooting it as if it was black and white. Now it turns out I didn't actually take many pictures of note. The results of the roll were just disappointing. But one image worth talking about is this one taken indoors at my local college. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen that I'm currently studying ceramics, and I sometimes share images of what I make on there. This photo was taken in the ceramic studios, and this is one of the shelves where we put our ceramics that we've made that are ready to go into the kiln. So this is an interior shot with no flash, just the ambient lighting, using the self-timer with a camera propped on a shelf, just like the previous image. This may be why the verticals in the image are not rock solid aligned with the centre, but that's okay for me. Now I think that shot and most of the roll was taken in February 2018. In March I loaded up the new MjuII with another roll of Poundland film, and I went to the photography show at the NEC in Birmingham with my mate Rob, where I snapped this photo of some of the models on the Fujifilm stand. I don't think Fujifilm were too impressed that I wasn't using one of their digital cameras, but there you go. Again, this is a self-timer, stand it on a shelf and hope for the best shot. As a result, I couldn't optimally frame the shot, and I subsequently missed out large parts of the guy's props and his headgear. But those model moments have lots of crowds and not a lot of space, so I think I did pretty well. Now unfortunately, later on in the roll, the MjuII turned out to be a bit unreliable, and I may make a video about that next year. But whilst I was at the photography show, I bought 2 rolls of Lomo purple film. This is Lomography's take on Kodak Aerochrome, which was a film which rendered the world in strange colours, most notably turning certain things like leaves into red and purple, which isn't obviously what you'd expect from colour film. So I shot the first of these rolls in May in my Ricoh R1, which is a compact camera with a nice wide-angle lens. This was another camera that I got about 10 years ago and which I haven't used very much since. It was originally designed to have a panorama feature that used blinds in the back of the camera to crop the film in conjunction with the wide-angle lens. I disabled those and I decided to dig it out again to try it with a roll of Lomo purple. So I went over to the family holiday home in Norfolk and I hung out with my cousin in an interesting town called Heacham, which is one of the only places on the east coast of the UK that faces west. Now, if you look at a map of the UK, Heacham is on the south bank of the Wash, which means that when you stand looking at the sea, you're facing west. So although you're on the east coast, the sun is setting over the sea. Now, if you don't live in the UK, and actually if you don't live on the east coast of the UK, it might be a bit complicated to understand, but it's pretty groovy to witness this. So here is the sunset, and, think about it, we're on the east coast. But with the sun going down, the light is kind of dim, and it doesn't bring out the true character of the film. In fact, in this image it could almost be red scale film. Now again, I'll probably do an episode dedicated to Lomo purple because it is pretty hardcore. But if we actually look at one of the very first shots that I took, which is this one of the sea and the sea defences out there in Heacham, then you can see the film's tendency towards purple and strange colours in general. The sky is rendered green, and the sand is reddish, and it's all very, very groovy. It's one of those things where you have to trust the process and let the character of the film do its thing. If you're not into experimenting, then this film is not for you. If you haven't seen Lomo purple film before, there's lots about it on the internet. It's worth reading up on if you're interested, and you can check out my Flickr stream, as I've just finished posting my favourite images from this roll on there. On that same trip, I also had with me my Olympus OM10, which I was shooting Ferrania P30 film in. Now it turns out this was the only genuine black and white film that I took all year, which on reflection is a surprise, as I thought I might shoot more actual black and white film. Now, I made a video of my film collection at the start of this year called What's in My Fridge, and I'm surprised that having just watched that, I only shot one of the genuine black and white films in my stash. The P30 is quite interesting because as part of their Kickstarter campaign for their colour reversal or slide film, Ferrania released this black and white film when they were getting their coating machinery up and running. Now unfortunately, while shooting this roll, I discovered that my OM10 has got some sort of a light leak. Not a drastic one, but as you can see, a couple of pictures were spoilt by light leaking in. However, this image of 2 dogs taken on the beach at Heacham is an interesting image, and it's relatively unmolested by unwanted photons. There's such a lot of detail there in the picture. It's a really, really crisp and clear, very fine-grained film, and there's a nice balance of contrasts with black blacks and white whites showing off all of the stones on this beach. I have 2 rolls left of this film. Maybe I will get them shot in 2019, along with all the other black and white films. Now, whilst we're in Norfolk, here is an interesting shot of the family holiday home, taken on expired Truprint 110 film. Now, 110 film is a small cartridge format film which was popular in the 1970s and 80s. The negatives are less than half the size of 35mm film, and the cameras were mostly quite basic. I shot this one on a Helena Telemaster flash camera that I got from a car boot sale years ago. The Truprint film I was using was in the camera when I got it, and I'll be making a video about the whole roll, as it's kind of an interesting story. For the time being though, look how grainy this image is. It really has to have something to do with how old that film is. And shortly after that trip, I was sent some Konica VX400 black and white chromogenic film from the USA by my friend Denise. And when I finished the P30, I loaded up the OM10 with this, and I took this picture whilst I was out and about on a trip to Liverpool in June one weekend. As you might expect, it's definitely very similar to Ilford XP2, and it looks lovely and sharp for vintage film that is past its sell-by date. Now, I got 2 rolls of this from Denise, so this next image is an example from the other film, which I put in the Canon MjuII camera, and I took with me on a trip to Scotland to climb Ben Nevis. This image was taken at Glenfinnan, which is a loch that me and my mate stopped at when we were out on our mountain trip. It's a very nice rendering of what it was like being there. It was an overcast Sunday afternoon, and it really looked exactly like that, calm and tranquil. Now, what the film doesn't capture, of course, is the chap who turned up on the shoreline and started playing the bagpipes. But, well, that is why pictures are great, but actually travelling places to witness cool things is even better. Now, one of the most interesting films I took pictures with this year was another Konica film. This is expired Konica VX200 colour film, and I got that from Nick and Trick Photography, a well-known UK camera store, and again it's in the Canon MjuII. Now, there was something funny about this film. It's got a pinky tinge to it, which I think has something to do with it being expired. I can't imagine this was actually how that film was meant to render things. It's got a wonderfully vintage look to it, and as you can see in this picture of Croydon in South London, that was taken in the summer of this year, but the peculiar quality of the film gives this Croydon landmark a very retro look, particularly I think with those red British Rail signs which haven't changed in a long time. Now, the other picture from the same roll, taken in a cafe in Oxford, has a similarly nostalgic feel to it. You can tell it's getting late in the afternoon, for example, but the colours actually make me think of the late 70s, and staying out late, past my tea time. The power of nostalgia. Now, I talked in Series 2, Episode 10 about Diana Day, and I did shoot a roll of medium format Kodak Portra colour film in my Diana camera in September this year. You can check out that video if you want to know more, but in the meantime here's a reminder of that one, an image of St Botolph's Church in Boston, Lincolnshire, otherwise known as Boston Stump. Now, I think this image is a good example of the camera looking out for me. I was feeling quite overwhelmed on Diana Day, and I can hardly remember what was going on, other than I was back in my hometown and it was intense. But this photo is there as proof that I was out and about and doing the best that I could, and that having the camera and doing a photo project was a good way for me to spend time during an intense period. So shortly after I took that photo, I went to Hamburg in Germany on holiday with my mate Colin, and I took 2 cameras and 4 types of film. So I took the Ricoh R1 with the second roll of Lomo purple film in it. Here is a shot taken in the Elbe Tunnel, which is really purple looking. That was a self-timer, no-flash, tripod shot due to the low light in the tunnel. Then there's this view of the Hamburg docks from the St. Pauli Landungsbrücke. Again, it's got all the purple stuff going on. You've got green sky and purple leaves, and since the Ricoh R1 has that very wide-angle lens thing going on, it does all this vignetting around the edges. I always think it's quite nice to put a cool trick film in cameras like that. So I think I'll definitely be doing a video just on the Lomo purple and Ricoh R1 combination. But on that trip I also took the Canon Epoca, and I took 2 chromogenic black and white films, a roll of Kodak BW400CN and a roll of Ilford XP2. So this shot of the cyclists is using the BW400CN. This is a nice action shot taken on a Sunday afternoon when the city centre was closed down for a cycle race. I'm not that into sport, so I don't really take many photos like this, but you couldn't really avoid the race that day, and there were some interesting opportunities to be had because of it. Now meanwhile, here is this graffiti saying 1973, and it was taken on Ilford XP2 a few days later in St. Pauli. I think that looking at these, which is basically the same type of film in the same camera, I'm going to be a little bit bold and say that I think that although they are very similar, the Kodak is just a bit more contrasty than the Ilford XP2. I've been shooting these two films a lot, but I never really took the chance to compare the two together until now. So let's compare them again. Here we have the Kodak, and the Ilford, and the Kodak, and the Ilford. Now maybe there is some difference there, and maybe that's another idea for a video. So I also took some Kodak Ektar 100 colour film, which I put in the Canon Epoca towards the end of the holiday, and I had a great time shooting that both on the holiday and finishing it off when I got back to the UK. So here's a shot taken on the ferry in Hamburg, and as you can see, the saturation of the Ektar film is really juicy, and the character of the image is very different to the two black and white films, even though it's the same camera. Now what I did notice though sadly is a smudge in lots of these pictures taken with the Epoca. You can see it here in the sky, and it's apparent with all the types of film I've tried. It's always in the same place, and it makes this dark patch like a smudge. I don't know how it got there. I guess there's something somewhere in the lens, but it's not on the surface, and the Epoca can't be taken apart easily to investigate it. As always, there are lessons to be learned with old cameras. And so finally this year I wanted to try black and white film in the Ricoh R1, and so I loaded it with some BW400CN, and I had high hopes for it. Sure enough, the pictures look great, but it's clear that on this roll the R1 has got a light leak. I actually noticed this when I was taking the film out. I noticed that on the back of the camera there's a window for identifying what film you have in it, and it's got foam around it. And it's this black foam to keep the light out, and some of the foam had perished, and it was stuck to the film cam when I opened the back of the camera, which means that the seal is breaking down, and it isn't effective anymore, and it's letting light in. You can see this really clearly on this photograph of Botley in Oxford, which has also got some dust marks on it. This picture is taken of what was Elms Parade Shopping Centre, which has been completely destroyed. And it's quite emotional for me because I lived near here for years and years and years, and now it's gone. It's going to be replaced obviously with a brand new shiny shopping centre, but these things are often quite emotive. And in fact, if you watch the Diana Day video, you can hear me ramble on about a similar situation in my old hometown. Moreover, of course, it's a shame about the light leak. Now this next image was less problematic, so the whole roll wasn't a total write-off. And moreover, the camera and the light leak can be fixed with tape, or it could be fixed with fashioning some sort of seal for it. But since it's the last total roll that I shot this year, it's an interesting thing that throughout the whole year I only used the Olympus MjuII, the Canon Epoca, the Ricoh R1, the Olympus OM10 and the Canon 90U2 cameras. Yes, I did shoot with the Diana and the 110 camera, but they were special projects. But as someone who owns a lot of cameras, I realised I didn't explore that many of them. I stuck with the same cameras throughout the year, although I have right now, as I'm talking, got a roll of film in my Canon EOS camera, but it is halfway through and it's not going to get finished in the year 2018. Notably, I didn't buy any new cameras. I think I acquired at least one as a gift from a friend which I've yet to try, but I don't recall going to anything like a charity shop or a thrift store or even a proper camera shop and buying any new cameras. So that's all I think I have to say for the time being for this review of 2018. I'm looking forward to next year, and honestly I hope for more of the same that I had this year. That is not to say I hope for the turbulent experiences I've had necessarily, but I do hope for personal growth and change. Those are great things to get out of life, particularly if, like me, you're getting over the hill somewhat and the number of years ahead of you is not going to be as many as the number of years behind you. When you think about things in those terms, life is all about better understanding yourself and the things around you. And in all those times I hope to carry a camera and to burn some of those moments onto film. If there's an interesting story behind the pictures, I'll be sharing them here, of course. I've got many ideas for future videos. Finding the time to do that is an altogether different matter. My long-term subscribers already know this is not exactly a regular update kind of channel. But all of you, whether you are new to the channel or have been here from the start, are welcome to stick around. You can subscribe or check out the other videos and see an easygoing, reliable but not always there look at analogue photography coming out of the UK and sometimes happening worldwide. I hope everything is cool with you, and I will see you in 2019. Bye for now.